I'm Todd,
And I'm Marlon.
and Hazel's at work. Well, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. Leilani, which one would you like to hear first?
Good news.
Good news. Okay, well, here's some good news. Hazel will be going to Washington, D.C. on July the 12th. She'll be having a legal paper notarized by the consul, and then she will be taking her Balikbayan oath of allegiance to the Philippines to regain her Philippine citizenship. They will then issue her and Leilani a certificate of dual citizenship. So both of them will be citizens of the Philippine Islands and also the United States. So that's good. And then Hazel will also renew her passport while she's there. So that's a big deal for Hazel and a big deal for Leilani. I'm afraid it doesn't apply to me, though, because in order for me to be a dual citizen, I would have to actually live in the Philippines for 5 years, and I have not yet done that, so I'm not eligible. But, you know, that's always a possibility for the future. Another bit of good news, I think, is that we are starting a companion channel on YouTube. It will go live on July the 1st, which is like tomorrow. And basically that channel will be called Our American Life, focusing on our life here in America. And now the bad news. The reason I'm doing that is Hazel and I have been discussing whether or not we actually want to follow through with our plans on moving to the Philippines.
That always been your bad news.
Yes, well, that is bad news. But the reason I say that is we were actually very, very close to buying some property in the Philippines. We had looked at property at Camella Homes. We looked at property at Summit Point in Lipa City. We also looked at Tierra Maria in Lipa City. And we looked in various other places as well. And Hazel and I had a difficult time coming to an agreement over just where we wanted to live. And so when I was in church on Sunday, about almost 2 weeks ago now, I prayed for some guidance. I asked the Lord to show me what His plan was for our lives. Because I know what I wanted. I want to go to the Philippines. And I know Leilani would enjoy that too. Yeah. But Hazel was not really excited about that move, and that sort of troubled me. And so I asked for guidance as to what I should do. And oddly enough, within 12 hours of that prayer, I started getting some really scary information. People contacting me, telling me some things that I did not know, and sometimes wished I hadn't heard, but it's all true stuff. For example, there have been armed robberies and break-ins at the places I mentioned, Camella, Mount Malariat. I think they had some at Summit Point, and more recently at Tierra Maria. And that's where I was about to buy some property. And so that kind of concerned me. And then I started hearing from some other expats who were telling me about the violence in the Philippines. Some of it's in Manila, some of it's scattered throughout the Philippines. But it's stuff that some of it makes it onto the headline news and some of it doesn't. But if you spend some time searching on Google, you can find out things like people being robbed at gunpoint or knife point. In fact, Hazel told me she had been robbed at knife point in Manila in broad daylight, where someone just walked up to her, put a knife in her side and said, "Take me to your ATM or else." You know, and so he got away with her money and her purse. And we've heard about multiple cases of Kanohs, foreigners, Westerners, white guys primarily, being robbed, kidnapped, held for ransom, children like Leilani disappearing. And I realize that that sort of thing happens all over the world to one degree or another. And then, of course, you've got the Muslims who will hold you for ransom and then cut off your head. You have the NPA, the communists.
The Queen of Hearts.
Yeah. You've got the NPA communists who will set up roadblocks and rob you, literally highway robbery as you drive along out in the rural countryside. You have President Duterte with his martial law. And, you know, I started hearing a lot of things like when you call for the police to come and help you, it can take literally hours. If they show up at all, it can take hours for them to get there. Same with ambulances. It's just a different world there. And, you know, I had heard some of these stories in the news sometimes, but starting about 12 hours after my Sunday morning prayer, I was getting contacted by people just coming out of the woodwork and telling me some of their horror stories. And I saw some videos of people in Manila. Now, I'm not planning on living in Manila, but there were people in Manila who are stuck in traffic, in a traffic jam in their car, and motorcycles pull up on either side and stick guns in their faces and demand their money or their life. In some cases, they just pulled up and started shooting. I don't know what that was all about, but it usually involves the victims being Westerners, Kanohs, typically, but could be Europeans or Australians. But, and of course there's violence among the Filipinos themselves. But, you know, you wouldn't expect it at a place like Camela or Mount Melorayat or Summit Point or Tierra Maria. You know, and the stories I got, I had those break-in stories verified, including by, in one case, by the realtor who sells the property, and they said, yes, it happened. They couldn't comment on it. They just said that the security team that was in place has been replaced by a new team of security guards. But I don't know. I'm hearing all this, and I talked it over with Hazel, and she said, well, that's her main concern about the Philippines, is that it's really not very safe. And of course, it's not a first world country, it's a third world country. So if there's somebody trying to break in your house, you can't just pick up the phone, dial 911 and have the police there in 2 minutes. Or if you're having a heart attack, you're not going to have an ambulance, which is a rolling hospital unto itself, show up at your door anytime soon. It's just not there. It doesn't exist. And as far as Leilani's schooling and education, I talked to some expats who actually live in Lipa City, and One of them was telling me he's planning on moving out. Another one said he's building a house, so he's not going anywhere, but he admitted that the school systems there kind of suck. And no matter what education degree Leilani might get, it wouldn't produce very much in the Philippines. And if she were to take that back to the United States, it wouldn't be worth much at all. So, I started hearing these things, and that really did concern me. But Hazel and I are in agreement that, at least for right now, with the way the world is today, what we know to be true right now, the Philippines is not a real safe place to raise a family. And so, because of that, we're probably going to stay here in America. I was also talking to another friend of mine, a guy who lives in California but wishes he could move to the Philippines. And he was also concerned about the violence there. And he said, he comes from Sri Lanka. And he says that because of that history, he wants to live in a warm tropical place with sunsets on the water, palm trees, a tropical climate where he can afford the cost of living and live in safety. And I started thinking, we live in Florida. Florida is a warm tropical climate. We got palm trees galore. We've got the sun setting on the water every night. And it's a safe place. We live in the Tampa Bay area, but which is okay, but just south of us is the Bradenton, Sarasota, Venice area, where I grew up. I lived in Venice as a child. I lived in Sarasota and Bradenton as a young adult. Those are nice neighborhoods. They're safe, they're relatively quiet. It's a nice place to live. Now, in the past 5 or 6 years, the cost of housing has gone up considerably. And some people say there's another housing bubble getting ready to burst. I don't know, maybe, might be true. But I do know that given 12 months in this country, with my pension kicking in and the money we have saved, I could see us buying a house in the Sarasota-Bradenton area. I could see that happening. And we could probably pay for half of it in cash and pay off the other half in 10 years. That would be an effort on our part, but it's theoretically possible. So we're wondering what we should do. I don't know. But I do know that living here, at least right now, is safer than living in the Philippines. And so, they say never, so I won't. But I don't see it happening anytime soon. And so we're not going to buy that property that we had been looking at. And a year from now, we might purchase property in the Sarasota-Bradenton area of Florida. Which is why tomorrow I'm launching Our American Life on YouTube. So if you would like to continue following our adventures here in Florida and see what our little family is going to be up to in the next year or 2 or 3 or 4, please search out Our American Life. In fact, you can find a link to it right here on this channel. If you look in the widget that says I also like you'll see a link to Our American Life. Please click on that and subscribe so you can stay tuned and stay current. We hope that that channel will become popular as we travel all over Florida, seeing what there is to see here in this little tropical country. If I could see the future, I would know for sure what the right answer is. But I just think it's strange that when I prayed for guidance, literally within 12 hours, I'm bombarded by people telling me about some of the scary things going on in the Philippines and why it's not a good place to have a family. Coincidence? Maybe. If you believe in coincidences, that might be a coincidence. Or maybe, you know, they say God works in mysterious ways. Well, maybe that's his way of telling me, just stay put. We're safer here. Tell me what you think. Please leave your comments below. And please be sure to subscribe to Our American Life. We hope to see you there on that channel very soon. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good day.